At Austin Priceless on Twitter joins us here on the phones from Knoxville. What's up, Austin? How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Good.
We are good. Got a lot of hoops to discuss. Got a lot of football recruiting news over the past couple of days. And Austin, let's start with the On3 300 and Jordan Ross getting 5-star status from On3 this week and as a top 10 player. How big of a role does he play as a true freshman, do you think, for Josh Heupel's team this fall?
Well, I think a lot of that depends on kind of where he's at when he gets here. Obviously, it would help if he were a midterm enrollee and he could go through spring practice, but I don't think that's an end-all, be-all. I mean, 2 years ago, two of Tennessee's most played freshmen were players that didn't arrive until the summertime. So it's not always an end-all, be-all when it comes to being here in January. But I do think it helps. I think for somebody like Jordan Ross or like Ben Warren, we're talking about guys on the line of scrimmage, being able to, either get a little bigger in Ross's, case, or trim off some baby fat, in Ben Warren's case, being here for those months in January, February, and even early March, and then the summertime is big, just from the addition or subtraction of weight. But, again, I don't think it's the end-all, be-all. I think a lot of it depends on how much mentally he can make up. Jordan's a long kid. Athletically, he's got a lot of gifts, and, he's somebody that Tennessee's really uber excited about.
Austin, with an open position for Tennessee in the office of Director of Recruiting, Josh Heupel tabbing Trey Johnson for that role, a Tennessee grad who has spent time on staff as the defensive scouting coordinator for the Vols since joining Heupel's original staff in 2021. What more can you tell us about Trey, and how will this role change with him now in it?
Well, I think it'll morph a little bit. Trey's done a phenomenal job behind the scenes, scouting, watching tape, helping the defense, scout players, and getting quality tape to the coaches to review. And he does a nice job when kids are on campus, and now he'll have a little more say in kind of how visits are laid out and all that. So again, in some ways, like it can be talked about, a little probably over talked about, but
sure.
At the same time, I do think that Trey will add something to that role, because that's a role that kind of sets up the visits, how they play out. But now he's going to know kind of the integral parts of each of these kids, because he's been watching the film on these kids. And so I think that he can add a little boost into that area of the football office. And obviously is done a little bit of it before at both USC and Liberty at previous stops, and now will kind of be I would call it more of a jack of all trades in the recruiting office with Trey Johnson.
Austin, how much does having Zalance Heard on campus now officially enrolled settles the offensive line positions, and what does that mean also? And I guess the other side of that, how has John Campbell been accepting of potentially moving over to the right side?
Yeah, I mean, I think every kid wants to play left tackle or whatever, right? John is moving to right tackle. You saw the videos out on Twitter of him working at right tackle. I think it's his preference. Probably not, but I think at the end of the day, John Campbell, wants to play, and John Campbell, wants to help Tennessee win, and is doing, kind of what Darnell Wright did, 2 years ago when he moved to right tackle, which, put Gerald Mincy at left tackle. Then Gerald Mincy moved to right tackle, begrudgingly, to let John Campbell play left tackle, and now it's kind of like this rite of passage. And so, John is good with it. Obviously, I think he would prefer to stay on the left side just because that's what he's always played. But I think this honestly helps him. One, I don't think John's a left tackle at the next level. And two, like now all of a sudden he's got tape of both. And the more versatility you can show, Ramon, as the better. And so I think that for John Campbell, this is the best thing that could have happened to him. And I think they're pretty settled on the offensive line, minus left guard. Is that going to be Jackson Lampley? Is it going to be Andre Keurig? Is it going to be, somebody else? That's why you have spring practice and fall camp to figure out. But, Tennessee's pretty settled at left tackle, right tackle, center, and right guard. It'll just be that left guard spot that will be a hot competition all spring and fall.
That's a good problem to have right there when you're only looking for one, but there's so many options to fill it with, man. God, it's been a while since we've had that, it feels like. One thing is this, they will be battle tested, especially the tackles, man, with James Pierce, starting with just him. How much better, Austin, can he get? The expectations for him going into what could quite possibly be his last year on campus, depending on health and all things involved.
Yeah, I think James Pierce helps everybody. He helps himself. He helps the offensive tackles. He helps the younger guys around him, whether it be, a Caleb Herring, a Josh Josephs, who's the same age, a Jordan Ross. I think that, just having him be as explosive and disruptive as he can be helps everybody, because I think it really does help those offensive tackles, kind of get, if you can stop James Pierce, you should be able to stop most, right? I mean, he's going to be top 2 or 3, edge guy in college football. So, I think it's a big deal to have him, be a showcase for your program going forward. I mean, in reality, a year from now, Josh Heupel is going to want him walking across that stage, getting drafted as high as he can. Is it 1? Is it 3? Is it 10? It'll be first round. And, I think that's big, because in 2 years you want him playing, on Sunday Night Football and saying, James Pierce, Tennessee. All that helps. I mean, you look at, what Josh Heupel and them have done. The last 3 recruiting cycles, Ramon, they've signed 3 5-star defensive linemen or edge guys: Jordan Ross, James Pierce, David Hobbs. And so, I think pretty impressive when you factor in that, what's Josh Heupel is known as an offensive guy, right? But yet here they're having success in the, recruiting the defensive side of the ball. And, it all started with James Pierce 3 years ago.
Austin Price of VolQuest joining us now on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Let's shift to the hardwood, where there's what should be a great battle tonight between Tennessee and South Carolina. Austin, how special is Dalton Knecht, and are we witnessing a player, in terms of just the potential that maybe he has even more we haven't even seen yet?
Yeah, I think you really are. I think that the most impressive thing about Dalton Knecht, Kayla, is he doesn't – it's not like he looks like he forces up a bunch of bad shots. The only time he forced up bad shots and looked mortal was when he had 39 against Florida and was trying to get 40. And, for 4 straight possessions, just took some god-awful shots just because his teammates wanted him to get 40, and he was just trying, right? So, for my liking, he just lets the game come to him. He'll have 2 or 4, 7 minutes into a half, and all of a sudden he goes on this flurry, 14, 16. All of a sudden, he's 20, and it just happens in such quick order. And, the way he played the other night at Vanderbilt was really impressive. Tennessee kind of looked sluggish after that week off in the first half, and they were down 35-30, and all of a sudden he just kind of took over early in the second half. And the 2 plays coming into my mind were the inbounds pass from the corner 3 with him falling away and falling down that he made. And then Tennessee, but the game was, done at this point, but they were up 11, and, he just kind of stepped on Vanderbilt and kind of, rose up and hit that, kind of almost borderline fadeaway from about the foul line to go back up 13. And you're just like, I mean, geez. I mean, the kid just can rise and fire from just anywhere, whether it's mid-range, 3, and that part of his game is kind of, reminiscent of an Allen Houston from the early 90s, because Allen could just kind of rise and fire from just about anywhere. And it's an NBA-type play and makes him extremely tough to guard. So, the kid's got the moxie to him, but he doesn't just force it. He's not just you look at the other guys that are in the SEC that, are averaging, right around the same amount of points as Dalton Knecht. They're shooting the ball more than Dalton Knecht is. He's not shooting as much as everybody thinks he is.
So could this be the piece that Tennessee's really been looking for in terms of getting to that next level in the tournament, getting to possibly, the Final Four? Is this the guy that could really help, get them to the next level? Because we've seen so many talented teams under Rick Barnes.
Time will tell, but I would tell you yes, based off the fact that in recent years when they've had good teams, when, people have thought they could make a run, they fell short. They did so because they had to, draw up plays to get people open. They don't have to draw up anything for Dalton. He can just ISO and go get his and go create a shot or make a play, whether that's him scoring or everybody collapsing on him and him kicking. And listen, if Jordan Gainey continues to shoot the ball like he shot the last couple of games after being kind of that lull there for a few games, he's finally started to find his footing. You saw Vescovi the other night, just stick it from 25 right in the Vanderbilt kid's eye. I mean, like, you start making shots around him, and Jonas Adu continues to play well down low, Tennessee's going to be a super tough out at the SEC tournament in March and then in the NCAA tournament in March. I mean, because he can go and, ISO and get his, I think that's what makes this team different and it's what makes him potentially, as you said, that missing piece.
Austin Price of VolQuest with us at Austin Price List, where you can find him on Twitter. Austin, do you get any sense that this could be a final hurrah for Rick Barnes? And perhaps I am premature in asking that, and I'm sure you guys get that question all the time in Knoxville, considering his age and experience. But with a lot of veteran guys graduating and with maybe the sense that this is Tennessee's best shot in a while to make a deep run, is there any idea out there that this could be it for Rick Barnes?
Well, Rick's at an age where, like, if he called it quits at the end of the season, nobody would be fazed, right? But I also would tell you that he has found the fountain of youth with the transfer portal. He doesn't have to spend months upon months upon months recruiting. He'll recruit a few high school kids that he feels like are good players that he can develop, and then he can go and cherry pick from the portal and recruit a kid for 10 to 14 days, and that's it. And you look at what Tennessee has been able to add out of the transfer portal this past year. I mean, Gainey and Connect are really good players that have really helped this team. The ability to make outside shots, the ability to score the basketball, the buy-in defensively for guys that are known as offensive players has been there. And I would tell you that, I think Rick is, looking around going, I could do this for a while longer because, the game's changed and, it's changed in a way where I think Rick Barnes can last. I mean, some of these coaches, where it's Jay Wright or Roy Williams, they got out because they didn't like the NIL space and all the stuff that went with it. But I think Rick Barnes just kind of looked around and said, I can adapt to this because there's some positives to it. And so I think that I wouldn't be so quick to, say that he's headed, to hang out with the grandkids quite yet. I think he's finding a little bit of fountain of youth here.
Austin, when you look at all across Knoxville right now on campus, man, is this about as healthy as you've seen it as far as sports and coaches and expectations that they've had? I mean, baseball just had their designation as a top 10 preseason team with also 3 preseason. I always emphasize that, All-Americans. And have you seen it like this? And if you have, what year or years were they?
A long time ago. It was back when I was, in high school. I mean, when you look at, what Tennessee did and in 98 in football, ladies basketball, and even the men's team was really solid that year. That was back when Delmonico was, going to College World Series and so on and so forth. But, I mean, it's been, probably 25 years, Ramon. I mean, to put it in terms, 2024, 98 to 26 years ago. I mean, it's been a while, and they are really healthy. I mean, all the big ones are healthy. The women's basketball team, I would tell you, is probably struggling a little bit. They've got to, kind of try to see if they can flip this thing around here. But you got golf is a top 10 team. Volleyball had a fantastic year. Softball continues to do well under Karen Weekly. Tennis has been good. It's been a good time to be on campus. A lot of the teams are kind of having success and kind of building off of one another.
Austin, I was going to ask you about the Lady Vols as well on the way out here. Another loss for them over the weekend. Do you feel like change could be on the horizon there? Is it finally time for maybe Danny White to take a look at that program and maybe look for a coach outside of the Lady Vol family?
Well, I think you have to let the season play out and see what happens. They obviously have some talent on that team, but at the same time, right now they are projected, and it's projections, right? But a lot of that stuff, the people that do it, know what they're know what they're doing. They're projected last 4 in. I mean, Tennessee's, they've made every NCAA tournament there's ever been. They've never missed. So if you miss, like for the first time in school history, obviously that's a big red flag. And so, can Coach Harper, can she find kind of something that gets this team turned around? We'll see. They've won some close games. They've had some big comebacks in SEC play. The loss to Ole Miss a couple of days ago was a tough one because that's one you should win. You have some really tough games on the schedule coming up. You still have to play LSU. You still have to play South Carolina. You have A&M at the end of February. So, again, for my liking, they've got to find something because they have some tough games ahead, but they can't really afford any more losses in games that they're supposed to win if they're going to make the NCAA tournament. And, I would tell you if Coach Harper, is going to be here in 2024-25 basketball season, they probably need to make the NCAA tournament and kind of, figure something out down the stretch here.
He is Austin Price, the authority on Tennessee Vols coverage at Austin Priceless on Twitter, VolQuest and On3, our wonderful partners covering Tennessee here on RKW twice a week. Austin, great stuff as always. Thank you.
Thanks, Austin.
Thanks, Austin.
Thank you.
Absolutely. There he is, Austin Price.